So we're getting up further into the Deer Mountains here, and remember our travelers are being ushered through these various communities, these rural mountain communities of deer, and they're being ushered through by the Spider Woman, who has got this sort of groups of. Well, she's a wolf spider. Remember, she has all these. She's black, but she has these sort of green, glowing green and purple stripes on her, and she's ushering through these deer communities further up into the mountains to meet the deer chiefs. And she's ushering through the ram primarily, vestibula, and also the our two humans from the south, Lee and John, and also Crackler, the lobster man, and the two mama crabs who, remember, Vestibula sort of getting this relationship of, she's the baby ram, but, these two big mama crabs, and they're sort of, getting this bonding happening. Really, the whole group is getting a good sense of bonding now as they're traveling through the deer community. They've sort of seen the slums, and they moved along from the inn, and they've been moving through these communities, getting to know the deer culture a little bit better. And so the spider woman is sort of telling them what to expect as they're coming up to the deer chief, and also the hawk has let them know that the elephant is waiting for them in the swamp. The elephant that the goat king, sea goat king, had sent out to meet them and get the ram back there to meet them on the east coast. And so the elephants hang out in the swamp because they don't want the elephant to disturb anyone. The elephants are not local to the region. So they're going to meet the deer king, and the spider woman is explaining to them, um, you know, this deer king may not be what you're gonna expect. But remember the inn. Remember the deer song as you left the inn and as you're hearing it, feeling it in the forest. And just kind of hold that in your heart as the deer king comes out, so that you can be in a proper space to be, greeting the deer king, and find some common terms to move forward in the journey and go meet the sea goat king. I'm sorry, the deer chief, right? The deer chief, because the deer chief is a he's not a king. He's just a respected leader of the deer community, and he's been chosen by the various chieftains of the various deer in on these mountains in these areas, and also in the slums in the valleys. And he's been elected basically by the local deer to as an honorable leader of the people. um, and so the spider woman says, okay, we're gonna come up to the site here where the deer chief is gonna meet y'all, and they start coming up to a large fire area where there's a small group of humans of the northerners, and these folks are kind of the opposite of the rogue humans who I mentioned earlier were violating their contract with their own sense of ethics, and had been picking off some of the deer people to try to play the role that they're not having because they don't have any predatory cats or wolves, wild wolves in the region. And the other predators, the larger scorpions, just don't even care about them, and they're not interested. They rather eat other things. And also the gator community, they'll eat some deer once in a while, but they're not really helping clean up the forest. And also the deer have become increasingly more advanced and evolved in their consciousness because of their relationship with the crab people. So these people who are sort of stewarding these fires for the deer who are up in the mountains, they welcome in our travelers, and they start explaining, hey, we're here to, as humans who are the ones who are doing integration with the deer directly. And these are the humans who are the primary consumers of the molecule that's in the remember, the baby rainbow serpent brains have this molecule that they make, that they end up having the ability to learn all these languages of all these different creatures of the forest. They can then learn the crab language very easily. They can learn the wolves and the spiders and the ants, and all these different languages. They learn them a lot more easily. And so now we're told that these humans are the ones who um, are helping to try to clean up the environmental problems in the area. So they're working directly with the deer people to see if they can get some kind of integration, because they can speak the crab language, and the humans are also benefiting their own consciousness by being able to interact with crab people more directly. And then what can they do to clean up the landscape? By bringing various technologies and different ecological remediation means to the deer people, to because remember, the deer chiefs are taking responsibility. They're really wanting to clean up the valleys from the toxic runoff of all the fecal material and the urine of all the deer that have been overpopulating the region and kind of strung out on these various narcotics. Um, so they're sitting there around the fire. All the people come in, and then out comes the deer chief, and he's this giant, giant, giant deer, and he has on his back, he's got what looks like a dead scorpion person. It's a very large scorpion on the back of this very large deer, and it's got the scorpion claws are kind of hanging over the shoulders of the deer, and the tail is down on the back, and the deer's antlers. There's just got these big antlers. And remember, the deer people they sort of wear clothing and decorative stuff that they get made for them by the various insects that they work with. And so he's got hanging from his antlers, he's got an eagle skull in one antler and a snake skull in the other. So he's this big, deer with this kind of like, intimidating to them. And right there next to the deer is another baby ram. And so this is the fifth ram. And this ram has got blue horns, blue ram's horns. And so um, this ram is actually the one from 2 days prior who made the first journey across the plateau the first day. And so it comes out that this is the fifth ram that we're finding out about here in the story, but this is actually the ram from the first story that had made it across, and then the sea goat who had been who's the sea goat's really the one responsible for uh, getting the crabs into this higher state of technology and advancing them to different areas. And so this is the sea goats offering to the deer people for integration. And so the deer people are really grateful to the Sea King, but have never met him directly. So, the deer chief comes out and he says, my name is Bush. And so this the deer chief, his name is Bush, and he says, I'm very eager to meet the Sea Goat King and to thank him for everything that he has offered us over the centuries. They've never interacted directly with him, but the latest thing that they've gotten from the Sea Goat King is members of the Sea Goat King works primarily with the crab people, but he flies all over the place and he also works inside of the world. And so he works with the snake people and the crab people, and he's got these monkeys and elephants that fly around. Um, and so he's given them this first ram. So he had taken the ram, the first ram, he had brought him back down underneath the earth, and had sort of done this debriefing with the ram, being like, hey, now the story, you know now the story of the deer, right, in that are no longer existent in the southern area of this large continent. And we're gonna start the Age of the Ram, and now that you know what's going on, would you like to be the first ram on the surface? And so this is actually the first ram is delivered through the mountains, through these mountain tunnels and tubes, underneath the earth that go into these old mountains that in this area the deer are primarily have residency with. And so the first ram had come out, and this is going to be the sky ram, right? Because this is the ram that's got the horns on it. And so we can sort of see the Sea Goat King's plan is starting to emerge here, in that he's given a gift now to remember the deer people. The jaguar people want the deer to be able to fly again, and to be able to leave the earth with deer to take more jaguars and deer to integrate with other areas in the galaxy. And so the Sea Goat King, or so the deer chief Bush, he says, let's gather up the various peoples of the forests, and let's go east and let's meet the Deer King. So the hawk says, yes, that's the plan. We're gonna after camp tonight here, we're gonna go out to the swamp, and we're gonna meet the elephant, and then we're gonna be able to all travel together and stay on course with the with the plans that the Sea Goat King could write. Because if it happens that if too many days pass and the Sea Goat King can't get everything orchestrated, then his track and his plan of meticulous plan of this many rams in this many region and this kind of thing, and everyone has to be informed of what's going on, in order for there to be synchrony of the plan that's unfolding into the different regions. So the hawk says, I'm glad everybody's getting to meet each other, and I'm gonna let the elephant know that we'll meet him in the morning. And then the hawk goes and flies off to the east coast to let everyone there know what's going on.